Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hollywood Matt Connolly with the double biceps. It is in the contract a legal requirement every single time we appear on camera. This is the Daily Combat Podcast. Welcome, my co-host, co-founder, co-breather of air, co-wearer of clothes, the master of disaster, the Count of Monte Cristo, Thunderlips, the ultimate male. It's getting longer, this intro. I love it. It is, in fact, the winner of the Dave Stockbridge of the Year award. It is Dave Stockbridge. Welcome to your own podcast.
Thank you very much for the very warm welcome, and I appreciate the intro every single episode. Hollywood Matt Connolly, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go, absolutely. We have a special guest today, a returning guest. This lady's been most prolific
most prolific guest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? So
it's her third inaugural appearance.
Oh.
So she knew what it was like twice and still came back.
That's right.
Absolutely amazing.
A sucker for punishment here. It is one of the best powerlifters going around in South Australia.
Yeah.
And
our favourite.
Yeah, absolutely. Our favourite.
I'm
And
gonna
your
take
favourite
that.
too. That's right. Powerlifter from, you're self-training, aren't you? You're running out of your own gym.
Yes, actually, I've got a coach now. So, what was it? At Pro at the event, my friend Helene was handling me, and we were halfway through the comp.
Is that like a back slapping type of role? Is that what's involved?
It's pretty
All
much.
that's required.
I wish.
If you could say something Bulgarian, it helps.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
It is Natalie Stone before I finish that. Sorry. I interrupted
Ladies and
myself.
gentlemen, Natalie Stone.
Natalie Stone. Hello,
Hi.
welcome.
Hi, I'm Natalie Stone.
Please continue.
Yes, I love
Powerlifter and purveyor of cute little cups of pot plants. So
That's
thank
our
you very
Christmas
much.
presents. So
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, we've
our
had
very
some-
first, maybe ever, our only Christmas presents ever received from a guest. So thank you very much. I know
Very plant miss.
most of our guests don't like us. It's so
Yeah.
strange. Yeah,
Say something strange. Oh my gosh, I will say something strange. No, I'm not coaching myself anymore. So I did coach myself into Pro Raw 12. And then when you compete, you should really have a handler on the day. So as much as it's you lifting, you want someone there kind of to bounce off with, like, your emotions, how you're feeling, helping call your numbers and your attempts, carry your belt and your wraps, like little things like that.
that's what Matt does for me with respect to this podcast.
Help him tie his shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah, no joke.
What the
carries my wraps.
I had to get somebody to help me do my tie.
That doesn't surprise me.
I don't know
mate.
how to do it. I'm not wearing a tie at the moment, obviously. Which is why I
And
didn't do
that's
it.
why there was nobody here earlier
That's
to
right.
assist.
Otherwise, I'd be wearing three of them. I've got a.
I request that next time.
I've got a coat hanger at home with like 15 already done up ties. So I could just put it on and tighten it.
That's actually
So I
adorable.
don't know how to tie it.
That's actually adorable. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep interrupting
No,
you.
what was I saying? So handlers
Handlers.
are just as important. Like, they're usually your coach as well. But I've known Helene and the Aries Strength. So Aries Strength is a multiple gyms now over in Melbourne, and a powerlifting team. They're probably one of the biggest powerlifting teams in Melbourne. And I've been like vibing with the team for a few years now. And it got to a few weeks just before I needed to fly over to Melbourne when I was like, I think I need someone to handle me. A lot of stuff was falling through the cracks, and I was like, and if you don't have that support on the day mentally, because it's very much so a mental game as it is physical, you can kind of lose it. And so I contacted one of my friends, and she was like, look, talk to Matt, who is the head coach, talk to Matt or Helene. And so I contacted both, and on the day they both handled me. So I had both Matt and Helene handle me. They didn't charge me for the day. They rocked up. They didn't have any athletes.
So they didn't charge for double handling.
Wow.
dude.
Zing, you can take the rest of the week off for that.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank you.
god!
Yeah.
That's what, it was a whole setup just for that.
I bet you were waiting. You were waiting for that. You just see you like.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like a lion in the long
Yeah.
grass.
That's right.
Yeah.
Saw your opportunity and pounced.
But it was probably one of my best, most worst experience powerlifting events ever.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. I'm going to be very brutal and say it was absolutely effed. It was from the weekend before the week leading up to getting there, all of that, like
just the preparation.
The preparation. So prep went well. Something happened the weekend beforehand that literally threw everything out, and I wasn't going to go. Like,
something in your personal world.
Yeah,
we'll let that hang out there.
Yeah, we'll let that hang out there.
Okay, it's another story. That's the fourth podcast.
We'll Nat's life.
Fourth inaugural.
We'll circle back. Fourth one. No, I'm very pretty much, obviously, people are going to listen to this because it's LA community. But you have to really own what you deserve, and you can't let people into your space that don't honor that. And if people aren't in it for you, please don't have them in your space. They have to be actually aligned with you, because powerlifting, as much as it is a physical thing, it is so mental. And if you're not mentally there, anything and everything can go wrong, which did. And I was very much so ready to pull out. And if Helene hadn't been encouraging me to, no, come over, still do it, because I didn't actually finish my prep. I didn't pull my last deadlift.
Okay.
And so I wasn't actually prepared for it. So my dad...
when you say you didn't pull your last lift, is that in the camp or the training, or you had a competitive lift before? Or
you usually have like your last deadlift day where you pull a deadlift to kind of work out where your openers are. I didn't get to do that because I was just emotionally done.
Yeah.
And so we booked emergency flights, and I just have to say I'm very, very blessed with the support system that I have. Otherwise, I would not have actually gotten there. Like, it took my dad having to sit in the terminal watching me get on the plane and then watching the plane leave to make sure I got to the bloody state, because I didn't want to go. I was done. And the reason I stepped up there was that I knew that I had some support over in Melbourne, but I didn't actually realize the family that I was actually about to step into. And I had a day to myself just to kind of try and bring my levels down, become a little bit more present. But I was just, my vibrations were just going everywhere. So I walked into Pro Raw Gym, no, not Pro Raw Gym, PTC HQ, sorry, where the event was held. And you know how you just walk into a space and you feel energy and you're just like, this is the elite? I walked in.
A bit like in this studio.
Yeah, absolutely. I walked in, I was like, this is the one. The Reeboks behind me. Shout out to the Reebok shoes. OG pumps. But I walked into that space and I'm so glad that I went. I'm so glad that I went. We didn't go to podium or anything. It was just there to see how it went. And I met people that I've been chatting to online through COVID, just chatting with them online, all those powerlifters, and I didn't realize how much space was being held for me over there. And it was a mental game before it was even physical. So yeah, it was pretty intense.
So you go.
So what did you learn about yourself in terms of being able to turn what was an emotionally draining situation and to kind of convert that into fuel that you can use when powerlifting?
That's the cool thing, is that you have to be able to channel it with control, and you can get to the point where, yes, you can fire up, but you can over fire up. But I actually couldn't fire up. I had none left. I had no fire in that left. And so like the last podcast we were on, we talked about the rules in powerlifting. So you have to get your squat on the board so you can make a total, bench on the board, and a deadlift on the board to make your total.
Yep.
And if you miss any of the three, you're out. So if you miss all three squats, you bomb. And I missed my first and my second squat. So I was one lift away from bombing at the best and biggest powerlifting event in Australia / the world, because I couldn't get my head in the game.
Squats first.
Squats.
And how long have you been preparing for this event?
Like 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get there
the thing is, people
bombing.
know this event was the event that I went from being, 140 kilos comatose on my lounge, not able to even walk to my letterbox, to rebuilding my life, my career, my business, everything to put it to that day. And to then, I remember looking up because you got the lights from the from the refs, and I saw the 2 reds, and I was like, this could be over. I need to wake up. And that woke me up.
So you've been preparing for 6 years. You're bombing. Was there a moment? Was there a thought? Was there something that popped into your mind that kind of changed everything in a moment? Or?
Sorry, it was when Helene handed me my phone back. So she was filming my attempts so I could watch them back.
Yep.
And we like to do that so you can kind of make adjustments on the day. And I watched it back, and when I was watching it back, I was getting messages from friends going, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And they didn't stop. And I'm not exaggerating this. My phone didn't stop vibrating.
Wow.
And then I realized that I wasn't on my own. I felt so secluded and alone. And I was like, oh my God, Nat, get your shit together. And I'm so glad I did. And it took everything. And the support from the community is quite amazing when you're at these events because the crowd gets behind you. They know if someone's going to bomb, you got to give them a little bit extra. And I'm very lucky that, you know, I had that fuel behind me. I knew that home was supporting me, and these people had come to support me out of their own time. You know, coaches handling people who aren't their clients is pretty huge.
Yeah.
And Matt and Helene just held so much space. And I remember stepping up and going, I think I can actually do this. And do you want me to grab it? Yeah. And so it was literally looking at my phone, seeing the support coming through. And when I stepped onto for that last lift, I don't know, I transported back into myself, if that makes sense. And I got it. And
so almost like a 1980s movie, like almost there was the last
soundtrack was playing.
literally down to the last
free throw.
Yeah. It was very haunting because it's like no one wants to bomb in a comp at all. No one wants to bomb at their dream comp, and it was just all mental. And
can you remember the feeling of having got through that lift and knowing, okay, I'm back. I'm back, baby.
It was like this rush of when I saw the two whites come up because I still got a red, and I was just like, I made it. I was like, okay, I can now go into the day, and whatever happens. But it was terrifying. It's any lifter's worst nightmare, and regardless of the situation, it was just so unfortunate. And now that we've taken the steps to make my technique better, make me stronger, it was total-wise the worst competition, but somehow I managed to podium third. And it comes down to, I think, manifestation and self-belief. Like self-belief is one of the most powerful things that you can seriously channel.
So step us through the rest of the day. So you get through that painful first round, and then how did the other two events look for you?
So we had bench come up next, and I love bench. Bench is
something was it held on a Monday?
No, it was held on a
outrageous.
Friday.
What kind of federation was this?
This is an outrage.
It's actually not a federation. It's
explains it. Okay.
Yeah, it's invitational.
It's not official. Oh.
Yeah, it's invitational event, so you get invited by the organisers to compete.
And how did you feel about doing bench on a day other than Monday?
On a Monday? You know what?
Did
I
it
was
put
allowed
you
to
off your
bench,
game? Or?
I think a lot. That's why it's really good to not be used to training on certain days of the week, because you never know. Because some comps run 3 to 4 days, so you might be competing on a Thursday, and you're like, "Well, Thursday's my rest day." It's like, "Well, honey, sorry, you got to get your shit together. Here you go." So yeah,
I thought it was just common information out there that you're 10% weaker on bench on any day but Monday.
No.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
chest day.
Well, everyone seems to know that. Yeah,
yeah.
Oh,
So
that's what the whole joke is,
which is great.
That's why he's pushing this joke.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
International Bench Days every Monday.
Edit that out, Matt.
No, you were fine. It was great.
But so you got you tell us how did it go when you got through that first round, and on the other side of that, what were your thoughts going into the next round? Did you think, oh, I've got this, or it's like, oh, I've still got a lot of work to do?
I've still got a lot of work to do.
Okay.
My main thoughts were, that's the worst I've ever squatted in my entire career. And you become very hard on yourself as well.
And was the third attempt like a good one that you were happy with, or it was still well below par?
It was. So you're meant to open at a weight that you can squat, and so you get that number on the board. And I missed it twice, and so I didn't get to go up in my second and third attempt. So my total was already impacted.
Okay. So hard to come back from that scenario.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to have to bench good today. I was going to have to bench what I needed to. And first and second bench went well, and we hit then 90 kilos on my third attempt, which was really nice. That got my total back up nicely, which was really good. I was able to climb back my numbers.
Was it number one in the group? That's pretty heavy.
No, some girls bench over 100 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah. Pro raw is huge, man.
Yeah,
like
right.
we see like women benching like 150 plus.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah,
More than I've ever done.
Dude.
That's insane.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
But you can arm curl it.
I can. Yeah, that's right. With one arm.
Those biceps.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any excuse.
But yeah, no, I'm very lucky that bench went well because then that got my total back up. And then because there were 4 flights, I think. So you have different groups. So one flight will go through all their lifts. Then you get second flight, third flight, fourth flight. And so I was in, I think, the second flight. So I then had a bit of time to relax. And so I went outside and I actually sat down on my phone and, trying to just process what was going on so I can get my head back in the game, talking to people that I know would like get my head back in the game. And I then got my notes out and then I had this moment when I was sitting there, I was like, I typed in there, I will podium at Pro Raw. I will podium at Pro Raw. I will bring home a Pro Raw trophy. I will become a Pro Raw athlete. I just wrote it all down in there at 3:06 p.m. on that day. And then I closed the app. And then we started warming up for deadlifts. And then when we started warming up for deadlifts, I had this feeling.
Do you have one of the disciplines that you're like, is it bench or is it deadlifts? Like what? It's bench, okay.
Yeah, bench is my baby. That's why I was able to get my total back up. And I'm very lucky with that. But then when it came to deads, I let Matthew Procac, he called the shots on deadlifts because we didn't know where my deadlift was sitting. And that's why you pull your last deadlift so you know in comp where you're going to be at for your opener. So we played it kind of safe and I realized that we were kind of sitting close to third with a couple of the other girls. And I said to Matt, I don't care what it takes, put me on I don't care what I have to pull off the floor, I'll make it happen. And he and Helene sat down, did a little bit of maths, and as much as it's what you can do, you have to be competitive in that sense and go look at the scoreboard and say that, Nat can pull this, that girl can pull that, how can we push it? And so Matt and Helene really put some work into that. And I remember it got to my third deadlift and I really had to nail it and I pulled it off the floor. And I remember locking it out and it's like, I've never had any drama in competitions. And this was the one that just was filled with just so much crap that I'm glad I got through. But I felt something in my top rib and my shoulder go pop as soon as I locked. And I didn't want to drop it because I wanted it.
Yes.
And so I fought through the pain, put the deadlift down, got 3 whites. I was like, I've done the day. I've done all the lifts. I might have fucked squats, but we got the rest of them. And I walked off the platform and as soon as I unlatched my belt, that just rush of just blood and adrenaline, it hit me so hard that I just collapsed. And I ended up having, we thought that I broke some ribs because of the abdominal pain that I was in.
Yeah.
And so I managed to crawl and sit on a chair. And luckily they had Dan Goodman, I think his name is. I'm so sorry, Dan. He's a physiotherapist from Melbourne, and he had tables set up. And they managed to crawl me over to the tables. I couldn't stand after this deadlift. I was like, did I actually damage something? But at the same time, I was really proud of myself for pulling that last deadlift. That's like powerlifters, man. We're a little bit special. And I remember laying on the table and Helene came over to me and she's like, you've done it. And she was so beautifully supportive. She's like, you know how you just meet those people who are just genuinely in it for you? She's absolutely one of those people. And we were finding, it's like you and that. And we were finding out where the totals were because the last girls were pulling their deadlifts. And I was laying there crying because I was like pain and just everything from that whole week just
the emotional release of
because it was 7 years, dude. Like to recover from PTSD to then step onto the platform like that, I felt like so much could have been taken away, but I was like, no, I held on to it for dear life, like that deadlift. And then Helene came over to me and she's like, you came third, you did it by 2.5 kilos. And it was like the most emotion I've ever felt in my entire life because I was like, to go, I've podiumed at my first Pro Raw that I nearly bombed at, which is, it was pretty fucking phenomenal. Wow. I've never felt so good in my life whilst feeling like shit.
So this is the Pro Raw trophy for third.
Which way
maybe
do I
to that way.
It's a mirrored image, yeah.
It's tricky. There we go.
It is the heaviest trophy in the world.
That is
5 kilos
that's it.
of love.
Yeah, it's an amazing trophy.
It is, absolutely.
And so tell us a little bit about Pro Raw and what they do and how you got involved.
So I came into Pro Raw when I first started a few years ago because of my mate Patrick Morrison. He was a Pro Raw athlete, and I think he was won like 7 or 8. So he was one of the world's best powerlifters. Sorry, and he with Pro Raw, it's an invitational only event. Your total, who you are, what you do, all of that sort of thing comes into a sort of pool for you to get an invite, and everyone wants to compete at Pro Raw.
So you have to be invited.
You have to be invited. Marcos has to contact you. So Marcos and EMAD run Pro Raw.
Mm-hmm.
They have for the last now 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it started at PTC HQ and then was a part of the Arnold's. So the Arnold's Sporting Festival had Pro Raw, and that's why Pro Raw was huge, because it was, and it still is huge. And then the Arnold's Festival obviously is no longer here in Australia, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought it back for Pro Raw 12 at PTC HQ, and they created a new category called sleeves. So I competed in the sleeves category. So you have sleeved and wrap squats. So wrap squats, you know how you see people wrap their knees?
Yeah.
So that's one whole category now.
Oh.
And then sleeves is another category, because you can get a huge amount of weight added to your squat with wraps. It's a different discipline. So Marcos and EMAD really created this sort of really cool event through Pro Raw of bringing in a sleeved event where you have to walk out the squat instead of being in the mono.
Wow.
So in the mono, we're used to standing up, gate comes out and you squat. And so they made it more like sort of like the IPF tested federations, where you use a combo rack where you stand up and then walk it back. And so it's a completely different discipline in your squat of being able to handle that weight on your back and then walk it back. And it's just wild, the stuff that you see, and the totals that you see are absolutely amazing, that come from the sleeves, but also like the wraps. Like you see women squatting up to like 260 kilos.
Wow.
It is the coolest thing ever. It's cool. It's cool. And you've got like, because Pro Raw is such an event, they have like different categories. Like they have a new category called Old Dogs. So they've invited all these master lifters from around Australia to compete. So I'm glad that, our older lifters are getting recognition, because they're the ones that really paved the way for us young kids. And then you've got Pro Raw sleeves, which is a category, single lifts for like squat, for bench and deadlift, then you've got sleeves, wraps, and then you've got this event called Wildcats, which is the 75 kilo women. And the 75 kilo class women have like 200 kilo plus squats, 200 kilo plus deads, and like, 120 kilo plus benches. It's the most thrilling experience watching someone move weight like that, like the Wildcat. And that's why it's a 3-day event, now 4-day event, because it's so big now. And it literally like handpicked the best people in Australia to come up against each other. And it's such a thrill.
And how did you earn your spot on that roster?
I got my message from Marcos, and that was really sweet. Marcos, I have been working with Marcos for a while because I was doing the photography, and I have been over to a few of his comps to do the photography for GPC Australia and then national events as well. And so he already kind of knew who I was, and he created the sleeves, and he was like, all right, sleeve time. Who competes in sleeves in Australia? Looked at our totals, looked at what we can do, and then got my invite. And
What was that moment like?
Is it a text message or
it's
is
a little
it a
message.
letter?
Or carrier pigeon.
You know what? I wouldn't put it past him.
You're like, oh, it's the Marcos pigeon. No, it's just another pigeon.
Yeah, and the
Every
That
bird
would
has
happen.
you got to decode what the pigeon's chirping about.
Honestly.
Pro Raw, is that what it's saying?
Oh my God. The Pro Raw pigeon.
It's not. It was more a message.
So he sends you a message.
Okay.
And so
Just some tips, maybe.
The
chips.
Batman symbol.
but when we were doing the lifts, so like obviously the squats didn't go to plan.
Just imagining a shadow of this trophy just beamed into the night sky.
The skull's no longer a
It's the
skull.
Pro Raw trophy.
It's the pigeon.
It's the call.
The moment has happened, and you like rip your shirt, and you've got like Pro Raw.
I'm
underneath.
not even gonna be a unicorn anymore. I'm gonna change it to a pigeon. Like all my
Pro Raw
branding,
pigeon.
the Pro Raw pigeon.
That's right.
That could be a whole like classification as well.
Absolutely.
A whole new federation.
Can you talk to Marcus about the invitations must be by carrier pigeon from now on.
Yeah,
That would probably happen.
if there's
Well, because we're very wild human beings. You never know what we're going to do.
if there's
next.
a suggestion box at Pro Rule, then
Yeah.
just
Yeah, there
next
is.
time, just- is there?
Yeah.
All right,
We'll
I
send
might
our own
put
carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeons.
just put a carrier pigeon in the box,
Yeah.
just
Oh.
as a little hint.
It's such a different way because usually like you have to qualify and stuff like that, do an event. But Marcos has like this way of just like sending like a one sentence, like you're invited to Pro Roll, that sort of thing. But when I was going up for my,
Were you expecting? Were you expecting to get it? Did you know? Sometime
I
in the
didn't think
next
I'd
month
get it.
or so.
I thought I was going to photograph.
I'm like,
I thought I was going to just go and be the photographer for it.
Ah.
And then it turned into an invitation to compete. And I was like, this has been, because I was just happy to be the photographer. And the dream to compete at Pro Raw has always been there. And it's been very known because I make my goals known. I like to speak my goals. So then when they happen, people go, fuck yeah, if Nat can do it, I can do it too.
Yep.
And so I've been speaking about being a Pro Raw athlete for ages. And when we were talking about me going over to do the photography, the conversation came up about competing, and the next thing I know, I'm on a plane there, and I'm like, whoa, what? And there's that overwhelming feeling that you're like, wow, I've managed to overcome so much to make this dream come true. And when I was waiting to go up for my second squat, and obviously all that stuff had happened, like missed the second, Marcos actually came up to me before it, and he took me by my arm, and he looked me dead in the eye, and I've never really spoken to him much, and he looked me dead in the eye. He's like, you were made for this. It's like, you were made for this. Come on, you were made for this. And he just kept repeating it into my head. And I was like, I can do this. And I just kept saying it. And then people, they're saying such positive things, but when you're filled with so much negativity, you're like, am I worthy of this? And then I was like, Nat, you are. You've worked for it. And then...
Perhaps for those people that aren't aware of your adversity, I know you've shared it perhaps on the podcast previously, and I'd recommend to anybody to perhaps backtrack and go over those episodes because there's a lot to learn. But you had a very difficult time some years ago, and so when you do refer to you've been through so much, that's really what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. So talking about, recovering through the sexual abuse and the assaults, recovering from, the trauma that came from that, being fired for my sexuality, the snowball effect of just all of that, losing my home, my career, my everything. I'm very lucky I have the support of my parents, to then spending years in therapy and acknowledging what happened to me, to then building stone strength, personal training and powerlifting, and then creating the businesses that I have now. And it's just, to me, being able to step onto the Pro Raw platform of being someone who, because I used to weigh 140 kilos, to being able to, lose 50 kilos and then step to being able to just walk. Like, I couldn't even walk because my body was weighed down so much. And I haven't actually thought about the trauma in so long. This is one thing that I'm really proud of, is that I can now speak about it so openly. And, sexual abuse and violence and domestic violence, all those sort of things is such a taboo to discuss. And I'm glad it's becoming more open, because in the sport that I'm in, it does happen, but it's gotten better. The sport has gotten better. People talk about it more. And the sport is what caught me. And so when I do this, people know who I am. I feel a little bit egotistical saying this, but people know who I am because I've been so open about my story, and that I've built one business, which was Stone Creative Media, through powerlifting photography. And it's so cool. I might be scrolling socials and I'll see training videos, and there's my photography on the walls of gyms, the biggest gyms in Australia, hanging there. And I'm like, it's okay, you can do this. And so when we were leading up to Pro Raw, that internal pressure of A, it's Pro Raw, but also B, this is something that I spent my entire life rebuilding, because past Nat, didn't want to be on this planet. And so it's almost like I did it for them, if that makes sense. And to be one lift away from losing it all, like if I had missed that squat, I don't know what I'd probably just gone on a plane and come home. But to me, it just goes to show that no matter what happens to you, you can come back. You can rebuild yourself. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, you're going to have to do the work. But when you face that adversity and just say no and just step through into it, it's amazing what you can achieve. And this is a testimony to actually being able to, no matter what, your dreams and your goals will be held. Because honestly, I should not have come third. Like, there was so many things in the way of that day that I shouldn't have come third, but I did because I gave a fuck.
Yeah.
And that's the brutal truth.
How does it feel to you now to be a role model to other young women that might have gone through something and might not have been able to see a way through, but now they see yourself and see what you're achieving and kind of feel like maybe there is a way?
Yeah, I love how we've gone from talking about pigeons to this. Like, I love our
We'll
conversation.
go back to pigeons if you want.
Yep.
But no, it's...
I like the pigeon in the box idea.
It's kind of scary because the fact that other people have been through what I have been through. And recently I had a client say to me that I saved their life. And I sat there and obviously we cried because it's a very emotional thing to be told that. But I'm proud of myself for sharing my story because a lot of people don't. And I'm glad that I did, that I've been open from day one about it because it's held space for other people to be able to then come into my space. And it's a big honor, like which is really weird to say because you've gone through something so bad, but to be able to help other people know that it's going to be okay. And that's not the end game because a lot of people lose their lives to this sort of thing. And I'm very lucky that I had the support. So that's why when, my friends, like my Melbourne family, my, 618 Barbell Adelaide family, like when I think about that stuff, I'm here because of them. And so when Pro Raw nearly got taken away and that moment, I was like, you have to do it for them because they showed up for you, Nat. So you show up for them. And that's why I did it.
Were you powerlifting prior to? Or you
Sorry, it's really,
that's all right. That's
it was
all right.
such a fucked weekend.
Our episodes where people cry always rate better. So
No, that's great. It's
really
so good to see the progression from where that you've made it
because-
to this point, and now you get to sit here and tell the story, and you've got third place at Pro Raw. Were you powerlifting already before, like when you saw this when you were 140 and you're like, I'm going to do powerlifting.
No.
This is my thing that
I
I'm
fell
doing.
into it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was training at a strongman / powerlifting gym. They're no longer around anymore. But Jake, he was the owner, and he was such a big, kind heart. I was there. I went there the day after, not the day after it happened because I didn't actually know how to process it. And I remember my friend Jade walked in and she said something, and you get so acclimatized to it when it happens repeatedly, which is really disturbing. That's why they can keep going. And I went through it for 6 months. And then Jade said something after I had a mental breakdown that morning at work. And that's when I realized, I don't think I'm actually okay. And she sat with me for a few hours, and then my mum and dad had to come and pick me up. And that's when, we were guided eventually for the mental health care that I got, because it was that traumatic that I just became a shell of a human. It was like a brain trauma, essentially, from how catastrophic the realization of, oh my God, this person was going to rape me. So... And I'm very lucky. That's the sad thing, is like I'm lucky because the amount of grooming that they put you through sometimes to be able to get there. And by speaking about it makes it more available to people to know what they are going through, to recognize it, recognize gaslighting, those abusive relationships. Domestic violence has now actually become so common, and it's really, really sad that it's actually so common. And now you're just like... we need to find a way to be more vocal. And that's why I really appreciate you guys having me on, especially the first time, to hold space to talk about that, because, a lot of people have tried to cash in on my story and it's been really quite gross. And you guys are just like, no, let's talk about it so we can help save people. And I'm really proud of the way that podcast actually has.
Oh, great.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we appreciate you being here. And,
Yeah.
Telling your story.
Very heavy.
Yeah, especially now that you've gone from that point and seeing you over the last couple of years and the progression, and each time you come back in, you've made all these achievements and progression in your lifting career, in your life, in your personal life, and today you get coming in with the biggest trophy I've ever literally seen. You're doing amazing.
I walked in and I saw it and I was like, man, I'm going to take one of those home. I didn't know how, because I knew the other girls are stronger than me. But that's the thing. Other people can be stronger than you, but it comes down to the day. Like, like me missing my first and second squat. You never know what's going to happen on the day. So never compare yourself. This is one big thing that we go through in the sport is a lot of comparison. It's like, oh, she's stronger than me though. But it's like, you never know what's going to happen on the day. So yeah, that's
absolutely.
It's the biggest lesson of my life, pro raw. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things when I was watching the Olympics a couple of years ago, one of the Australian pole vaulters, I think he ended up getting, I think he got the gold or the silver, but he wouldn't watch any of the other competitors at all. Like he would deliberately turn away, and they had the big screens up, and he would basically be laying face down on the ground because he didn't want to see.
That was me.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to exist.
And they asked him afterwards, like, why didn't you watch it? And he goes, if I watch somebody else, I get invested in what they're doing, and it sucks my energy. Like I want them to succeed, or selfishly sometimes I want them to fail so that I will succeed. Yeah. Because I haven't got any control over what they do whatsoever. Yeah. So I'm wasting my time and focus and energy by watching them. So I just try to avoid it at all costs. And, obviously in that situation, you're in a stadium full of, thousands of people. You've got big screens everywhere and everyone's watching and you're going to hear the reaction. So he was like just trying to ignore that the whole time. But yeah.
That's a big thing because you got your mates competing with you in the same weight classes as well. Like one of my friends, she was in the same weight class with me, Carly, and we've been competing together for years. And you always want the best for the person. But you're there for you to do you. Like Eve is now one of my closest friends. She's from the Aries team as well. And we were competing against each other at the 2019 GPC Nationals. And we both came equal third in our weight class, but she was like 0.5 of a gram lighter than me. So she actually took the third place. Yeah. Hi, Eve, you lovely. And now she's like one of my favorite, one of my closest friends. And I'm actually on the Aries team. So, yeah.
Do you feel that, though? If you're watching somebody else, you're going to be like, oh, I'm too focused on what they're doing? Or is it if you're watching your competitors, is that something where you're like,
that's a good question.
This outcome, whether they lift or whether they don't, will affect my result?
Definitely for pro raw, that moment where because I didn't even know the girl, like I didn't actually look around that day to see who I was competing against or who I was competing with. I was very, how you get so anxious and inside yourself that you can't actually see anything.
Tunnel vision.
Very tunnel vision, but not a focused tunnel vision. It was very odd. I didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, I think, but then when I came out of that and to go into the deadlifts, and I think when I turned around to Matt and I was like, do whatever we need to do, you kind of got to put it to the side because it's like, yes, you love your friends and you're all family there, but if you want to step up onto the podiums, you have to make those bigger calls. And that's where it comes into sportsmanship. It's like you respect the person. I don't like when people be like, oh, she pulled more than me, she came third. And it's like, no, we're all, that's what she could do. This is what you could do. So it really goes down to that. And I like to emulate that into my lifters to be humble and to be in it for them. We don't really look at the totals unless we need to because it's like you're really there for you. And it's like we push for podiums, yes, that sort of idea, but you're also there for you. So you don't want to end up overshooting an attempt, if that makes sense, because you want to be able to get the numbers on the board for the first and second, and the third go for a party, depending on your goals. Obviously, everyone's going to have their own opinion about powerlifting and what I'm saying right there. But it's like you want to be humble in the sport because there's too many egos. And it's just not a nice look. So.
It's funny, that there's ego, but it's an individual lift. Like
it
there's
really
only one person doing the lift.
Yeah. It takes a village though to get that one person up there, and that's why I train out of 618 Barbell here in Adelaide. I've been there I took a break to open the business, so I've been there for I think in total 7 years, which is quite a long time. And then when I went to Melbourne, I'm a part of the Aries team as well. So I've got dual fan, which is really lovely. Because powerlifting, it's like, it might just be you stepping up, but like I said, like having a handler, like Helene, all of that sort of thing. If for some reason, the way that they just aligned and came into my life, like I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. And that's sad. So
I'd love to hear the thoughts that you had. You're about to go out for your third squat lift, and it was just like, this is do or die kind of moment. What was that moment like?
I wanted to just curl up on the floor and not exist. Like, it's very depressing when you've worked so hard and you see the numbers in your head that you wanted to get, what you did in training the week beforehand really well, and then to not even go near them. And it's very depressing when you've worked your ass off, your life off, you dedicated, sacrificed everything, and not everyone gets that. And some people are really selfish. And it's like, I just sat there and I went through every single emotion possible. And it was a very sickening feeling. And you know how you get so anxious, your legs get turned to jelly? And that's just how I felt. And I never felt that way before. And I think it wasn't until like I looked over my shoulder and Matt was there and Helene, and then I looked over at my friends and they're all screaming at me. And I was like, I can do this. And then I started actually having that internal monologue conversation of trying to re-empower myself from that disempowerment. And then, yeah, something, I don't know what it is, but like something has just made sure I've gotten there. Like, you know, people talk about guardian angels, all that sort of thing. Something made me late to that shift. Something made me not walk into that room that day. Something made me snap, and then like my brain, and then something, you know, held space so that I went to the gym somehow, to then meet the people who then put me onto the people that helped with my rehabilitation. Along the way, it has been protected. And it's like, almost like Helene was sort of like that sort of guardian angel, these people, these friends. And standing there, I woke up and I hadn't felt awake. And that's really sad. And I hold no animosity, I hold no hate, because hate and animosity and all those horrible feelings, they are so consuming. And when you lift, you can't have anything like that inside you, because it just doesn't work. It's a bad negative emotion. And so I channeled back into myself to where I wish I was, and then we pulled it. It was absolutely horrifying, because I remember like few weeks before I came on the podcast with you, Missy, to talk about the worst nightmare a powerlifter can go through, I lived it. And it's all about composure. So yeah, something just made sure I got through that day. It's quite amazing.
So you unrack the bar, take the step back, right at that point.
Right at that point, it's like, I was just like, just put your butt on the ground. just sit on the fucking floor. It was such a, I've been doing this for so long, I didn't know why it was like that. And I was just like, come on, man. Like, come on, get your shit together. And you know how you guys do this.
Your chakras weren't in alignment, or something was...
Get it together now. You've worked for this. And I just remembered the moment that I touched the bar, I was then able to switch on into that mental place, because it's this place that you go to. And my mum made that comment about nationals recently. When I lifted, she's like, I've never seen you lift like that. And it was like, I was like, yeah, because I got my fire back. And it was like, once I touched that bar for that third, I was like, everyone at home is watching you right now, because it's one of the most live streamed events for powerlifting. And these people have helped you get there. So I didn't just do it for me. I did it for the people who have helped me get there too. So I think that's what really made it happen. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sheer fear of failure.
So you're obviously a very values-based person, and you've taken that value and those values and that ethic into your training, but you've also taken it into your businesses. So you've established some brands to support the various activities that kind of circle around you. Perhaps talk a little bit about what all of that looks like in the Natalie Strong empire right now.
Strong empire.
Yeah.
It's actually evolved heaps. So I actually had my biggest week in the business last week, and I don't really...
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was really awesome. So I don't like talking about money and how many clients I have on my books and all that sort of stuff. To me, that doesn't look nice to me. So to me, it's about the people, their experience, what they're going through, how someone's able to go. Like, I have a 16-year-old client who went from a 0.5 kilo dumbbell chest press to dumbbell chest pressing 3 kilos. And to me, that's just as exciting as someone benching 60, 70 kilos. So it's such a humble, small but mighty space. And it's, I had 31 people in last week.
Incredible.
It was nearly 40 sessions, because some people are on 2 to 3 sessions a week. It was a huge week, and that's not counting the online.
You're training these people?
Yeah, one-on-ones.
Wow.
And so it was really cool. I finished on that Saturday morning, because I did my morning, did my onlines, and I just logged off, and I was like, I've dreamt of this moment for years. From the moment I started doing the PT, the online PT course that I was doing, that people laughed at me about doing, that said, oh, what do you want to be PT for? Because, look at you. And I was like, wow, I just had my biggest, most successful month, and I was really, really proud of myself because I have no debt.
But it's not just the training though. You've got some merchandise.
Yeah,
well.
my apparel.
Some cool branded stuff. So
Stone Strength.
And so people can buy into the Stone lifestyle if they want to.
A little bit of swearing on my apparel.
Carrier pigeons. You got jumpers. You got
carrier pigeons are next.
Right,
dude. I've got pigeons nesting out in my backyard.
They're waiting. They've been hanging out. They're waiting for their opportunity.
And unicorns feature quite heavily in your branding as well. So what's the unicorn story?
Do my little.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Trademarked.
Trademarked
and copyrighted, all that jazz.
Yeah.
It's been a very self-educational journey. So it's like I learned how to run my own business, and obviously I've had help along the way, but to do things, I always found myself kind of being sort of misled because I had the mental health, obviously I was very damaged. So people saw me as quite vulnerable. And along this journey, I've had people try and take advantage of that. And I just step away. I just graciously step away.
You recognise that now.
Yeah.
You see the markers and you understand, okay, well, this is not a legitimate relationship. There's something underlying here that I'm a bit... Yeah.
And and as a young female business owner as well, we get targeted quite a lot. And so I've made sure that with the unicorn, I've educated myself on how to protect the logo, because it's not just a logo and a cute fairies and stuff like that. It's got that symbolic reasoning of, like we spoke about in the first podcast, of how at the airport in 2017, I think, I was going over for one of the GPC nationals to photograph, and there was a lady with a unicorn head going to Mardi Gras, and my friend was like, look for a unicorn. I was like, oh my God, there's a unicorn there. And that's the coolest thing, to go back to Pro Raw, is that when I was sitting there with my dad, saying to my dad, I don't want to go, and watching his heart literally break hearing me say that, because he knows how important it is, he's like, we're sitting in the same terminal as I did years ago when I had just started my recovery. And then he's like, if that isn't a sign. And then he gave me a Bob Peck talk. My parents are the most beautiful people on this fucking planet. And I was like, we're at the same fucking terminal that lady was at. And I was like, if you can't say that's not coincidence, and like this full circle thing that, I don't know what your spiritual beliefs are, but yeah, I was like, that's when I started feeling it. And so I was like, get on the plane. Just get on the fucking plane now, even though you don't want to do it. So, yeah. And so now it's spawned, Stone Strength personal training and Stone Strength powerlifting. So they're actually two separate entities, because, powerlifting and PT, you don't want to train, you got your gym mum, she doesn't want to be trained like a powerlifter. Very different goals. Your postnatal client does not need to be trained like a powerlifter.
Or deadlifts.
Yeah, so it's very different disciplines. So it's really nice I sat down, I think middle of this year, and I split the business up, and I really categorized it and made it more clear about what I can offer to people, so then I can align with them depending on what they want. So if it is pre or postnatal, if they want to buy some cool t-shirts, with the idea of the t-shirts isn't to just be a t-shirt and put the brand out there. It's the reason the writing's on the back of it is if someone's having a crappy day at Coles and they're standing behind you, they're going to read something motivational, because it's almost like, holy shit, like that Pro Raw moment where I needed someone just to say something to me to get me back in the game. You don't know who needed to just read, be relentless, believe in yourself, it's going to be okay.
So somebody might just see a unicorn and then see a special message.
Yeah, that's 100% what it is. And it's really cool how it became that I didn't try and do anything, and I didn't even try and force it. It's just naturally become this, and it's actually really cool to just wake up every day and just work with people who want to better themselves, and it's just beautiful. So,
Nat, if people want to jump on the waiting list for these services, if people, what's your ideal client when it comes to powerlifting? Is that female based or anybody?
Anyone. So yeah, powerlifting is for everyone, and so that's something that I really respect. about like, because obviously we've got trans athletes, all that sort of thing happening. 618 Barbell actually has a non-binary class now. So for it's not part of a federation, it's part of what the gym's running, is the non-binary class. So then for people who are non-binary trans, they have somewhere to compete, because there's not really for them to compete in with the feds, because it's male, female, and everyone has their varying opinions on it. And as someone who works with trans people weekly, like I have quite a few trans people that come into the space. It's such a deeply personal journey, and I feel like there needs to be more conversations held about trans health and trans rights and trans athletes as well in the sport, because it's so new, if that makes sense. And so I really highly respect BJ, I can't say his full name, Bodine Lyons, that's his name, but he calls himself BJ, for creating that sort of like little class for them. So I train everyone. So I've got clients who are like 20 years old, who are competing at national levels. And then I've got clients who are 54 years old who want to compete at national levels. And so it's, I've got a huge array of ages from 16 to, I think she's 62, my oldest client.
Wow. So
yeah, she's a killer.
If people want to register, is there a website they can go to do that?
Yeah, so stonestrengthpt.com.au.
Okay.
Or just Nat Strong Hobbit on Instagram.
Nat Strong Hobbit. Now that's where I'm getting my Nat Strong news. I would head over there. Yeah, for sure. Even if just for a little bit of motivation, you can head over there and see some crazy lifts or
Oh, it's so cool.
Or just some cool t-shirts sometimes.
Cool. I love it. Like when I get like the other day, I opened my website up completely just to be able to take orders. And I had a bunch of orders come in. A girl from Broken Hill ordered some stuff from Melbourne, from Perth.
Wow. And
so I was printing all this stuff and I was like, oh my God, I'm sending this stuff all over Australia. That is so rad. And my subs guy, he gave me some like little samples and stuff as well. So people get samples and stickers. So when you buy a t-shirt, you're not just supporting me, but you're supporting so many other people out there. That
you make the apparel as well, don't you?
I do. Make it all by hand. I sit there and I pick the bloody stuff myself. It's all vinyl, so when like this, it gets cut by my machine. I then peel away to the negative, and then I have to space it onto the t-shirt, then press it, peel off then the plastic, then peel it, press it again. And if you've got multiple colors, multiple pressings, it's just like, it's a lot of work. And that's why I show what I do myself. And a lot of people would think, wow, that's a lot of work, but very routine. So I always have time and space for people. And that's the thing that, like, you know, PT, opening a personal training business in the peak of COVID to now sitting here with you guys and talking about the success of it, the success of the clients and the stories that are coming out of there now. Like, you know, athletes training at national levels, it's very wholesome, very wholesome. So I train, and a lot of people be like, I can do everything, but it's like, I like that I can do everything, that I'm self-sufficient, because yes, you can rely on other people, but then it's brilliant to be able to do things yourself, because it's like, this is coming from me. So if you ordered a t-shirt, I get to make it for you, and it comes from me and given to you.
So you're not just putting you're putting love and attention into even the t-shirts.
Oh yeah,
not just the clients, but the t-shirts as well.
I love it. When I'm making it, I'll like usually make a little reel or something showing the process of how it's done, because I taught myself how to make my own apparel through YouTube Craft Mums. So
shout out to the Craft
Mums. I remember the messages of like stupid t-shirt, and this thing's wrong and that. It would have taken so many times to get it right.
It took a long time to learn how to do it, and a lot of lessons, and the fact that like I learned a lot from Ben Francis, who is the CEO of Gymshark. And he puts so much information on YouTube about running a business, an apparel line, finances, management, like anything you can think of, he's in. And so here's me thinking I needed to hire someone for socials, to hire for accounting. He did everything himself, and it literally came down to how he structured his routine. Yep. And when you structure your routine, you cut out the bullshit. And when you can actually do that, you have so much more time in the day. It's amazing how much time we time dump into our phones being invested in other people's lives. So you know how you're saying about watching other people lift. It's like, I will be invested in them, yes. But the thing is, though, when you start investing time, say you're scrolling socials going, oh, why is that guy doing that? Why is he posting that? Why aren't you writing your own stuff? Why aren't you working on your own craft? Like, who cares what they're doing? People are aligning with you. Put yourself out there. So that's my business 101 there. That's the thing.
So we're moving from powerlifting, coaching, PT, now business coaching. So the empire expands, ladies and gentlemen. So
I feel like I would like to have done more time in the industry before. Like, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with people. And I've done a little bit of business mentoring with some people on how to like manage their social media a little bit better, and how to manage their time, like how to actually structure their time, because it gets very overwhelming when you are managing clients yourself and all of those other sort of tasks that you have to do outside of life. And so it gets very overwhelming. So people reach out and they're like, how do you do that? And so I just am so open about talking to people, because I feel kind of gross charging someone like $1,000 to learn what you can through just experience, and you can't sell experience. And that's the other thing. You know, like there's so many mentorships and all of that out there. And my big thing when someone's wanting to get into powerlifting, being a coach, do the time. Yes, you can sit through a 6-week course, but the thing is, spend your time at 6 comps. You know, be there from literally watching people warm up, watch how coaches handle, go to the elite comps, you know, don't just sit in your gym, like go and see how other people do things and learn from them, speak to people. You have to be open to learning to be a coach. And that to me is why I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's, I'm more than happy to talk to people about it and my experiences with running a business, but there's just so much to learn still. So even though I've been you can be like in the fitness industry for 10 years sort of thing, but you spend so many years at the beginning just learning. So
you know, I kind of feel like you learning something has tremendous value, because you've got a propensity to want to share that with as many people that are prepared to listen. So, and that's certainly been the case over our now 3 podcasts.
I appreciate you guys so much for that.
Our number one return
That's right.
guest.
You're in the lead.
You are in the lead.
And
Jordan Biggie Stevens. So it's it's the strong, it's all the
Biggie.
strong men,
That's right,
women that we
Biggie.
are dealing with here. So so. We'll have
He's
to set up
someone-
some kind of rivalry where you
my
have
God,
to
get
pull
Biggie
trains or something like that to sort out who's the number one podcast guest here on the Daily Combat podcast. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just would like to say thanks to Biggie if he ends up listening to this. So you've had him in a few times, and I've known him since day one. I started doing this. He was emceeing at Powerhouse Gym at a Capo powerlifting meet. This is like years ago, like 2015 or 16. And he was emceeing, and I just remember him talking to me, and I was like, wow, this guy is really cool and big.
Yeah.
And he's like, my name's Biggie. I was like, what's up, Biggie? and then at Pro Raw, he had a lifter there, and I just remembered him just looking at how I looked that day when I walked in, and him just opening his arms up and giving me the biggest hug.
Yeah.
And he helped me warm up, and it just goes to show how beautifully wholesome our community really is.
Yeah.
Like, there's people in this community who are awesome. He is definitely one of the people that I highly rate. Like, he's just awesome. Yeah. Strong as fuck.
Yeah, he bought me lunch yesterday as well. So,
Did he?
yeah, he's even better now.
Oh, wow. He didn't buy me lunch.
Oh, what a champion. No, you guys are good. And this is the thing that I love about this podcast, is that you get such an eclectic mix of different people and athletes and people who specialize in their field. And I feel very blessed that you asked me to come back multiple times to talk about, you know, where I'm at with things. And I feel very honored that, you know, I came last time and I wasn't feeling so great, and then you had me come back and I'm like, hey, I got a trophy.
Yeah,
like, I actually
absolutely.
did. And we were talking about,
Yeah.
you know, the possibilities of podium, and then now we're here, and it's
Yeah.
like we got Pro Raw 13 in, I think, 14 weeks.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I got my Pro Raw 13 invite. So
Carrier pigeon.
yeah, Carrier Pigeon says, "See you in March, Missy." That's what the message said. Definitely a pigeon.
Fantastic.
So you're going to have to build a new shelf to get all these trophies on, I've got a feeling. And it's going to have to be a pretty strong shelf, because at 5 kilos, those trophies are pretty substantial.
Let's
Yeah.
hope I
So-
bring another one back.
Yeah,
in
what if you had
14
like 10
weeks.
of them? The shelf would hold on the
Whoa,
wall.
whoa. Pro Raw, what would it be? Pro Raw 23?
Yeah.
You need to get an engineer in to take care of that mantelpiece.
Only one person's ever won that many events, though.
Oh.
And Patrick Morrison. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Up until now. Up until
Up
now.
until now.
That's the
Nat-
first one.
Yeah.
I love your self-belief in me. I'm going to ride that. Thank you, Dave.
There you go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We've got huge self-belief, or health self-belief. No,
Yeah.
we've got huge belief in you, Nat, and I
Absolutely.
think that's only because you've earned it. So congratulations on all that you've achieved so far. Congratulations on the most recent trophy here as well, and thank you so much for sharing your journey, not just with us but with our audience. It's been an absolute pleasure to be along for the ride.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No,
Carrier
excellent.
pigeons and all.
And we'll look forward to our 4th podcast coming up very, very soon, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Fourth inaugural one.
Get a double bicep out if you want, because it is the
that's right.
end.
It is. Well.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Nat Stone.